So in this little video, we're going to go back into our mixer and I'm going to show you how to add an effect to a sound. And we're going to start with probably the most used effect, and that is reverb, what gives us the ambient element of each individual sound. So to do this, I'm using a trumpet sound here. Now I've accessed that. This is one of Korg's preset keyboard set libraries. So I went into the trumpet section, and the first sound in the factory section is called natural trumpet. Now I have a favorite trumpet player called Chris Botti. That's B-O-T-T-I. If you get a chance to check him out on YouTube, absolutely wonderful musician, and he has the most distinctive sound to the trumpet, largely because he uses a 7-second reverb, which is a heck of a long reverb, but it just gives it that wonderful sound to the instrument. So how would I go about replicating that on here? Well, the first thing I need to do is to go into my mixer, and I need to see the expanded mixer because I need to go to my effects tabs down on the side. Just out of interest, we can access the mixer that way, or we could just press the menu button and up in the top left hand corner, mixer and effects, and that will take us to the same pace. So whichever works for you, that's the way to do it. Now I need to be on the pads and keyboard, which I am, because I need to look at this section with my trumpet sound in it. And first thing I need to do is go to Master Effects. Now this is where you set up to 3 master effects for the keyboard voices. So upper 1, upper 2, upper 3 and the lower. These 3, Master Effects A, will affect the accompaniment. That's how I always remember it, A for accompaniment. So that does all the style parts basically. And we can have up to 3 different effects. Now, I'm going to keep this really simple today. I'm going to switch off the second effect on our voice effects, and I'm just going to look at the top effect here. Now it says Overb at the minute. If I actually press that and choose where it says Overb, I'm going to choose one called Reverb Smooth Hall, and I'm going to press exit. And then I've got lots and lots of controls for Reverb Small Hall, but we're only going to look at one of those controls today. Now if I just test this out, again, the best way to hear reverb is to play a note, release it, and you will hear the effect of the reverb. Yeah, we've got some reverb on there, but it's certainly not 7 seconds. Well, have a look at our first parameter. It says Reverb Time, in brackets, in seconds. And at the minute, we've got a 2.9 second reverb. So we're quite a way off what we actually want at the minute. But I'm going to go and highlight where it says 2.9, and I'm going to move that up to 7 seconds. Yeah, now we've got a really nice long reverb. Okay, now we're really starting to get towards the sound that we want. There could be, let me just exit out there, there could be a scenario where you put that up to 7 seconds and you still can't hear any reverb. There's 2 reasons that could be the case. The first one, while we're on this screen, just have a look to the left. It says wet stroke dry. Well, what on earth does that mean? You would have also seen that if you'd have gone into Reverb Smooth Hall, down in the bottom left hand corner, we can see that same parameter, wet, dry. Let me see if I can explain this to you. If we took our trumpeter, Chris Botti, and we're in a long, hollow corridor, If I was to stand right in front of him blowing a note on the trumpet, that note would leave the trumpet and hit my ears before the natural ambience or environment has had time to affect that sound too much. So what I'm hearing in that scenario would be quite a lot of the dry sound. The further I move back down the corridor, when he blows a note, there is albeit a very short delay between him blowing that note and that sound hitting my ears. We know it's only a fraction of a second, but in that time, the ambience of the room has had effect on that sound. So what I'm now hearing is the wet, or more of the wet part of that sound. And you need a mix of wet and dry to make the sound realistic. If we were to hear it all wet, it would just be an absolute wash with ambience and effect, and we haven't got the core sound there. So it's the dry element that is the pure sound, and the wet element is what happens when the room has had an effect on that sound. So I hope that's you know, a relatively easy way to understand it. So if that had have been set to totally dry, we've got no reverb. We've got no reverb at all at this point. So first of all, we need an element of wet, and the more wet part of the sound we put on, the more you will seem to hear the reverb. So that could be one scenario where you've set a 7-second reverb, but you still can't hear any reverb. Well, it could be that the wet and dry setting is wrong there. Let's exit from that. The other scenario could be on the next tab down, MFX Send. It stands for Master Effects Send. In other words, how much of that master effect am I going to send to each sound? Well, we know that our reverb is in FX1, and at the minute we're sending 49 units worth of it to upper 1. Now, if you look, each sound, if you're using them, can have that effect sent to it, but by differing amounts. So you don't have to have every other sound with a 7-second reverb on it. We could actually turn it right off on one of the sections. So let's do that. Let's highlight FX1 and the amount, and we'll take it right back. Again, we're totally dry again now. Let's bring it back up, maybe to around 30 to 40. That's a nice sort of setting. So we've got that nice long reverb. So that's how we actually set it up. We would go into our master effects, choose the one we want. We might want to play about with the wet and dry setting, but we will certainly then want to go into the Master Effects Send tab and decide how much of that goes onto that actual section. Let me just give you a little scenario here. Let's go back into our mixer and our expanded mixer, and we'll go to Master Effects. Stereo beat per minute delay. I've now switched it on. Now, let's go to Master Effects Send. We haven't actually got a lot of it on, but let me exaggerate it and we'll put it on. Now you can hear that sound sort of, not only has it got the reverb, but it's sort of bouncing off into the distance. So, but if I was to mix something else with that, let's say some strings, I don't want the strings bouncing off into the distance. So FX2 on my string track would be set to 0. So I hope that's cleared it up. Master Effects tells it what effects we want to use, and MFX Send is literally how much of that effect we need to send to every individual part there. And just have an experiment with the wet and dry, so that you have an understanding of what it actually does.